The Velen Dominion had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They moved from world to world, taking what they wanted. They called themselves collectors. Other species called them conquerors, but most species did not call them anything at all, because most species learned to stay silent and obey. The Velen were patient. They studied their targets for years before attacking. They watched the blue planet called Earth for a long time. They saw the humans fighting each other. They saw their wars and their hate. They saw a species divided into hundreds of nations that could not agree on anything. They are weak, the Velen commanders said. They fight among themselves. They will fall in days. They were wrong. The attack came on a Tuesday morning in Seoul. The sky turned red first. Then came the sound, a deep, terrible hum that made windows shake and children cry. People looked up and saw the ships. Massive black vessels that blocked out the sun. They hung in the air like mountains made of metal. Then the fire came down. Plasma beams cut through buildings like hot knives through paper. The Han River boiled. Bridges melted. Glass towers exploded into dust. People ran, but there was nowhere to run. The streets were rivers of fire. The air itself seemed to burn. In 60 minutes, 3 million people died. Seoul was not the only city. Tokyo fell at the same time. Then Mumbai. Then London. Then New York. The Velen attacked everywhere at once. They wanted to break humanity fast. They wanted humans to see that resistance was impossible. General Una Park was 53 years old. She had gray in her hair and lines on her face from years of difficult decisions. She had fought in small wars and kept peace in smaller ones. She had spent her whole life serving her country. But she had never prepared for this. No one had. When the attack began, she was in a bunker deep beneath the Blue House in Seoul. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Screens around her showed city after city burning. She watched her home die on a dozen different feeds. Her aide, Captain Tae Kim, stood beside her. He was young, only 32, with a calm face that hid his fear well. He had been with her for 5 years. He had never seen her cry. He did not see her cry now. "General," he said quietly. "What do we do?" Una did not answer immediately. She watched the screens. She saw people running through flames. She saw buildings collapse. She saw a mother holding her child, both of them covered in ash, looking up at the sky with eyes that did not understand. Something changed inside her. It was not sadness. Sadness would come later, in quiet moments when she was alone. This was something else. Something cold and hard and very, very patient. "Get me a line to every military commander on the planet," she said. Her voice was steady. "Every single one. American, Chinese, Russian, European, all of them." Tay stared at her. "General, our communication systems, find a way." He found a way. It took 4 hours. For hours, while the world burned. But by the end of those 4 hours, General Una Park was speaking to military leaders from every major nation on Earth. They were scared. Some were angry. Some were already talking about surrender. The American general said his president was dead. The Chinese admiral said half his fleet was destroyed. The European commander said there was nothing left to fight with. Una listened to all of them. Then she spoke. "I understand your fear," she said. "I feel it too. We have lost millions of people today. We have lost cities that took centuries to build. We have lost friends and family and everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe." She paused. On the screens, she could see their faces. Broken men and women who had just watched their world end. "But we are not dead," she continued. "We are hurt. We are bleeding, but we are not dead. And as long as we are alive, we can fight." "Fight with what?" the Russian general demanded. "They have ships that can destroy cities in seconds. We have nothing." "We have everything," Una said. "We have 7 billion people who just learned that they are not alone in the universe. 7 billion people who just watched their families die. 7 billion people who have nothing left to lose." She leaned forward. "The Velen think we are weak because we fight each other. They think we are divided. They think we will break. But they do not understand what they have done. They have given us something we have never had before. They have given us a common enemy, a reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting together." The room was silent. On the screens, the generals and admirals watched her with tired, desperate eyes. "I am not asking you to surrender your nations," Eunice said. "I am asking you to join them. Today we are not Korean or American or Chinese or Russian. Today we are human. And today we begin to fight back." The American general was the first to speak. "You're talking about a unified command, something that has never existed." "Yes. Under whose authority?" Una met his eyes through the screen. "Under mine, or yours, or anyone else who has the will to see this through. The authority does not matter. The fight matters." There was a long silence. Then the Chinese admiral laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had lost everything and found something strange on the other side of despair. "I always thought it would take the end of the world for us to work together," he said. "I suppose it has." One by one they agreed. Not because they trusted each other, not because they believed they could win, but because there was nothing else left to do. When the call ended, Tay looked at his general. "Do you really think we can win?" Eunice stood up. She looked at the screens one more time. The fires were still burning. The ships were still hanging in the sky. But somewhere in the ruins, she knew, people were already picking up weapons. "Already refusing to die? They struck Earth first," she said quietly. "That was their mistake. Now we make them pay for it." She walked toward the door. "How we go to war?" The Velen expected surrender within 3 days. That was how it always went. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. The pattern was always the same. First came shock, then came collapse, then came submission. Every species in the galaxy had followed this pattern. Every single one. Humanity did not follow the pattern. On the 4th day after the attack, a Velen patrol walked through the ruins of Seoul. There were 50 soldiers in heavy armor, carrying weapons that could melt steel. They moved slowly, confident in their power. They had seen no resistance. They expected none. They walked into an old subway station. The tunnels were dark and filled with dust. The Velen commander ordered his soldiers to search the area. They found nothing. No humans, no weapons. Just empty tunnels and broken trains. Then the ceiling exploded. The humans had spent 3 days preparing the trap. They had taken explosives from military bases and hidden them in the concrete above the station. They had waited in side tunnels, breathing quietly, watching through cameras made from old phones. When the Velen patrol was deep inside the station, a young soldier named June pressed a button. 43 Velen soldiers died in 3 seconds. The survivors stumbled through the dust and smoke, confused and hurt. They had never been ambushed before. They did not know what to do. The humans came out of the side tunnels. They carried simple weapons, rifles and knives and metal pipes. They should have died. The Velen armor was supposed to be impossible to break, but the humans had watched the Velen carefully. They had seen where the armor was weak. They aimed for the joints, the neck seals, the gaps between plates. 7 Velen soldiers survived the explosion. None of them survived the next 5 minutes. When it was over, June and his team took the Velen weapons. They took the armor. They took the communication devices. Then they disappeared back into the tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. This was happening everywhere. In Tokyo, engineers figured out how to jam Velen communications. In London, chemists created bombs that burned hot enough to damage Velen ships. In New York, hackers broke into Velen computer systems and stole everything they could find. Humans learned fast. They had always learned fast. It was how they had survived ice ages and plagues and countless wars against each other. Now they turned that ability against a new enemy. Dr. Suji Han was a physicist from Busan before the attack. She had studied quantum mechanics. She had written papers that most people could not understand. She had lived a quiet life of research and teaching after the attack. She was brought to an underground base where scientists from every country worked together. On a table in front of her was a Velen plasma rifle. It had been taken from the Seoul ambush, still covered in the blood of its previous owner. We need to understand how it works, General Yuna told her. Then we need to build our own. Suji looked at the weapon. She had never held a gun before. She had never wanted to. But she thought of her parents, who had died in the first hour of the attack. She thought of her students who had been in the university when it was destroyed. I will figure it out, she said. It took her 3 months. She did not sleep much during that time. She took the weapon apart piece by piece. She studied the energy cells. She analyzed the focusing crystals. She made mistakes and started over. She burned her hands and kept working. When she finally understood how it worked, she laughed. The Velen technology was advanced, but it followed rules. Physics was physics, no matter what planet you came from. And once you understood the rule, you could play the game. Within 6 months, humanity had plasma rifles. Within 8 months, they had shield generators. Within a year, they had their first starship. Admiral De Yoon had commanded submarines before the war. He understood how to fight from hiding. He understood patience and surprise, and the value of striking when your enemy did not expect it. When the first human warship launched from a hidden base in the Pacific Ocean, he was on the bridge. The ship was ugly. It was made from pieces of Velen technology welded to human steel. The engines were unstable. The weapons were untested. But it flew. Set course for the Velen orbital station, Day ordered. His crew looked at him with wide eyes. The orbital station was massive. It had hundreds of guns. It was supposed to be impossible to attack. Sir, his second officer said carefully. Are you certain? Day smiled. It was not a kind smile. They think they know how we fight, he said. They have been watching us for years. They have seen our wars and our tactics. But they have only seen us fighting each other. They have never seen what we do when we all fight together. The human ship rose through the atmosphere. It was detected immediately. Velen fighters launched to intercept it. The orbital station powered up its weapons. The humans did something the Velen did not expect. They did not slow down. They did not try to fight the fighters. They accelerated directly toward the station at maximum speed. They are committing suicide, the Velen commander said, watching from the station. Primitive fools. Then the human ship launched something. A small object, barely visible on sensors. It moved faster than the ship, faster than anything the Velen had ever seen a human build. The Velen commander had 3 seconds to realize what was happening. The object was a bomb. A nuclear bomb, enhanced with Velen technology. It hit the station's shield generator at the exact point where the shield was weakest. The explosion was visible from Earth. Admiral Day watched the station die. Pieces of it fell through the atmosphere like burning stars. On the surface far below, humans looked up at the sky and saw something they had not seen in a year. Hope. Send a message to General Yuna Day, said quietly. Tell her the sky belongs to us now. The Velen High Command received the news in silence. For the first time in 12,000 years, they did not know what to do. They had awoken something on that small blue planet. Something they did not understand. Something that did not follow the rules. Something that refused to break. General Yuna stood in front of a camera. Behind her was a wall of screens showing the damage that had been done to Earth. Burned cities. Mass graves. Children without parents. Parents without children. 1 year of suffering recorded in images that no one would ever forget. She had not slept in 2 days. There were dark circles under her eyes and new lines on her face. But her back was straight and her voice was steady. She had learned long ago that soldiers needed to see strength, even when their commander felt weak. Is the signal ready? She asked. Dr. Sujihan nodded. She was standing behind the camera, working on a captured Velen communication array. They had spent months figuring out how to use it. Now they were ready to send a message that the entire galaxy would hear. The signal will reach every system in the Orion Arm, Suji said. Maybe further. Anyone with a receiver will see this. Good. Captain Tae-Kim stood nearby, watching his general with worried eyes. Are you sure about this? If the Velen see this message, they will know we are planning to expand the war. Yuna looked at him. The Velen already know we are fighting. This message is not for them. Then who is it for? Everyone else. She turned back to the camera. She took a deep breath. Then she nodded. The red light turned on. The signal began broadcasting across the stars. "My name is Una Park," she said. "I am a general of Earth. 1 year ago, our world was attacked by the Velen Dominion. They came without warning. They killed millions of our people. They burned our cities. They thought we would surrender." She paused. Her eyes were dark and steady. "We did not surrender. We fought back. We took their weapons and learned how to use them. We built our own ships. We drove them from our sky. And now we are coming for them." On hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, beings stopped what they were doing. They watched their screens with wide eyes. They had never seen anything like this. No one fought the Velen. No one spoke against them. The Dominion had ruled for 12,000 years. Resistance was not just dangerous, it was unthinkable. But here was a small creature from a planet most of them had never heard of. Looking into the camera like she was not afraid of anything, "I know you are watching," Una continued. "I know there are many species in this galaxy who live under Velen rule. Species who were conquered long ago. Species who have forgotten what freedom feels like. Species who have been told again and again that fighting is pointless." Her voice softened, but did not weaken. "I'm here to tell you it is not pointless. We are proof. We were supposed to fall in days. We were supposed to be easy. But we are still here, and we are still fighting." In a factory on a world called Morith, a worker named Riva watched the broadcast. She was small and gray-skinned, with 4 arms that were perfect for building things. Her species had been slaves of the Velen for 3,000 years. They built the Dominion's warships and weapons. They were not allowed to refuse. Riva had been born in slavery. Her mother had died in slavery. She had expected to die in slavery too. But now she watched this human woman speaking, and something strange happened inside her chest. She felt something wake up. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. "To the Velen," Una said, her voice growing harder, "I have a simple message. You struck Earth first. That was your choice. Now we choose war. And we do not fight like you. We do not conquer worlds and enslave populations. We do not attack the weak. We protect them." She leaned forward. "You made an enemy of humanity. You will learn what that means." On a prison world called Tola, a warrior named Kos watched the broadcast. His people had been conquered 500 years ago. They had been the greatest warriors in their region of space. Now, they were prisoners, forced to fight in arenas for Velen entertainment. Kos had scars on every part of his body. He had killed many times, always for masters he hated. He had stopped hoping long ago. Hope was a weakness. Hope got you killed? But watching this human speak, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Not hope, not yet, but something close. A small spark in the darkness of his heart. To every species that has suffered under the Dominion, Una said, "We offer our hand. We offer alliance. We offer friendship. We know what it feels like to watch your world burn. We know what it feels like to lose everything. And we know what it feels like to stand up anyway." She stood straighter. The Velen believe they are unstoppable. They believe the galaxy will always belong to them. But they have never faced a species like us. Humans do not give up. We do not accept defeat. We fall down, and we get back up. And we keep fighting until there is nothing left to fight for. Her eyes seemed to look directly at every being watching. "Join us. Not because we are strong. Not because we promise victory. Join us because we are willing to fight and we are willing to die for the simple right to be free. Join us because together we can do what none of us can do alone." The moment stretched across light years. We are coming, and we are bringing fire. The broadcast ended. The red light turned off. Una stood still for a long moment, then let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. "Do you think anyone will respond?" Tay asked quietly. Una looked at the communication array. It was already receiving incoming signals. hundreds of them, then thousands. From systems all across the Dominion, from species that had been silent for centuries, messages were coming in. Some were simple. Just a few words. We are with you. We remember how to fight.
Tell us
what to do. Others were more detailed. Ship designs, weapon plans, locations of Velen bases, information that slaves had been collecting for generations, waiting for anyone to use it. Una read the messages as they came in. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. You remember, she said softly. They had been waiting for someone to stand up first. And now that we have, they are ready. She turned to her officers. The war for Earth is over. The war for the galaxy is about to begin. The first ship arrived 3 weeks after the broadcast. It was small and old, held together with patches and hope. It came through the edge of the solar system slowly, sending signals of peace on every frequency. General Una met it personally. She stood on the landing platform with Captain Tay and a small guard of soldiers. The sky above them was gray with clouds. The air was cold, but she did not feel the cold. She was too focused on the ship that was landing in front of her. The door opened. A small figure stepped out. Riva was not much taller than a human child. She had gray skin and forearms and large dark eyes that seemed too big for her face. She moved carefully, like someone who had spent her whole life being watched. She looked at General Una. Then she did something she had not done in 30 years of slavery. She stood up. Straight, I am Riva of the Morith people, she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. I have come to join your war. Una stepped forward. She did not bow or salute. She simply held out her hand. You are welcome here, she said. What do you bring? Riva reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the era-detailed image of a Velen warship. With every system labeled and explained, my people build Velen ships, Riva said. We have been building them for 3,000 years. We know every weakness, every flaw, every way to destroy them. Tay stared at the hologram with wide eyes. This was information that could change the entire war. Information that the Velen thought was secret. Information that generations of slaves had memorized and passed down, waiting for the right moment. Why now? Una asked. Why did you wait until now to share this? Riva looked at her with those large, dark eyes, because until now, there was no one to share it with. We needed someone to stand first. We needed someone to prove that fighting was possible. Where she paused. You've proved it. More ships came. Every week, more arrived. Some came alone, carrying single refugees who had escaped from Velen worlds. Others came in small fleets, bringing soldiers and scientists and engineers. The Tolan arrived next. They were large beings, taller than humans, with thick skin and powerful muscles. They had been warriors once, the greatest warriors in their region of space. Then the Velen had conquered them and turned them into slaves. Their leader was named Kos. He was old by Tolan standards. With scars covering his body and one eye that did not see, he walked like someone who had fought every day of his life. He met General Una in a conference room deep underground. He studied her for a long moment, this small human woman who had challenged an empire. You are not what I expected, he said finally. What did you expect? Someone larger, someone louder, someone who talks about glory and honor. Una smiled slightly. I do not believe in glory. I believe in winning. Kos laughed. It was a rough, broken sound, like rocks falling down a hill. Good, he said. The Tolan do not believe in glory either. Not anymore. We believe in revenge. Atta. He held out his massive hand. We bring 10,000 warriors. All of them have been trained to fight by the Velen themselves. All of them have been waiting for this moment. Una took his hand. Her fingers were tiny compared to his, but her grip was strong. Welcome to the war. Lieutenant Hannah Shin had lost her entire family in the first attack on Seoul, her parents, her younger brother, her grandmother who had raised her. All of them gone in seconds. For months after the attack, she had not spoken. She had done her job, processed communications, followed orders. But inside, she was empty. Then the allies started arriving. And Hannah found something new to fill the emptiness. She was assigned to work with the coalition species, to learn their languages, to understand their cultures, to help them work together with humans. It was not easy. The Morith were quiet and careful. The Tolan were loud and aggressive. There were a dozen other species, each with their own ways of thinking and fighting. They had all been slaves for so long that they had forgotten how to trust. But Hannah was patient. She listened when they needed to talk. She translated when they could not understand each other. She reminded them again and again why they were fighting. "We are all broken," she told them one night, when arguments had gotten too heated and some were threatening to leave. "Every single one of us. We have all lost things we can never get back. But that is why we are here. Not because we are strong, because we remember what it feels like to be weak." The room went quiet. The beings looked at her, this small human woman with sad eyes who spoke their languages and remembered their names. "The Velen broke us," she continued. "All of us. But broken pieces can be put back together. Not the same as before, different, maybe even stronger." No one left that night. Admiral Dayun led the first combined fleet into battle. Human ships flew alongside Morith vessels and Tolan cruisers. The pilots had trained together for months. Learning each other's signals and tactics, they attacked a Velen supply station on the edge of Dominion space. It was supposed to be heavily defended. It was supposed to be impossible to destroy. They destroyed it in 2 hours, the Velen. Commanders watched the battle recordings in silence. The humans did not fight like any species they had conquered before. They did not form lines. They did not follow predictable patterns. They changed tactics constantly, adapting to every move the Velen made. And the former slaves, the species that were supposed to be broken and obedient, fought beside them with a fury that was terrifying to see. "How do we stop them?" one Velen general asked. No one had an answer. On Earth, General Yuna received the news of the victory. She read the report, then looked out her window at the sky. Somewhere up there, her fleet was fighting. Somewhere up there, beings who had been strangers a year ago were dying for each other. "We are not just fighting a war," she said quietly to Tay, who stood beside her. "We are building something new. Something that has never existed before." "What is that?" She thought for a moment. "A family," she said finally. "A family made of everyone who was ever told they did not matter. Everyone who was ever conquered and forgotten. We are bringing them together. And together, we are going to change the galaxy." She turned back to her desk. There was more work to do. There was always more work to do, but for the first time since the war began, she felt something like hope. The fleet gathered at the edge of Velen space, 200 ships from a dozen species.
Ow.
All of them pointed at the same target, Vela Prime. The homeworld of the Dominion. General Yuna stood on the bridge of the Defiance. It was humanity's greatest warship, built from Earth steel and alien technology. The crew around her was mixed humans and Morith and Tolan, all working together like they had been doing it for years instead of months. She looked at the tactical display. The Velen fleet was massive. 600 ships, arranged in perfect formation around their homeworld. They outnumbered the coalition 3-1. "They have more ships than us," Admiral Dayun said. He stood beside her, his face calm. "But they have never fought anyone like us," No Yuna agreed. "They have not."
Actor Su Ji-han
Was at the weapons station. Her hands moved across the controls with the confidence of someone who understood exactly what she was doing. She had helped design every weapon on this ship. She knew their power better than anyone. Lieutenant Hannah Shin sat at communications, listening to signals from across the fleet. Allies from a dozen worlds. All of them waiting for the order to attack. Captain Tae Kim stood at Yuna's side, where he had always stood. He looked at his general and saw the same woman who had declared war in a bunker beneath. Soul. Older now. Tired. But still unbroken. General Hana said, "The Velen are hailing us. The High Council wants to speak with you." Yuna nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered. A face appeared old and gray and sharp, with eyes that had watched empires rise and fall. This was the leader of the Velen Dominion, the being who had ordered the attack on Earth, the being responsible for millions of deaths. "General Park," he said. His voice was cold and smooth. "You have come far for such a young species. I am impressed. I did not come here to impress you. No, you came here to die." He leaned forward slightly. "You cannot win this battle. You must know this. Our fleet is larger. Our technology is superior. You have fought well, but this is the end." Yuna did not blink. "You said the same thing about Earth," she said. "You said we would fall in days. You said we would surrender. You were wrong then. You are wrong now." The Velen leader studied her. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not fear, not yet, but uncertainty. "What do you want?" he asked. "Freedom," Yuna said simply. "For every species you have conquered, for every world you have stolen, you will release them all. You will dismantle your war fleets. You will face justice for what you have done." "And if we refuse?" Yuna smiled. It was not a warm smile. "And we will take what we want. And you will learn what happens when you push a species too far." The Velen leader was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened. "You're brave," he said. "But bravery is not enough. This conversation is over." The screen went dark. The Velen fleet began to move. "All ships," Yuna said calmly. "Attack." The battle for the galaxy began. The Velen expected the coalition to fight like every other species they had conquered, careful and cautious, trying to minimize losses. They did not expect what actually happened. The human ships charged directly into the Velen formation. They did not slow down. They did not try to find safe positions. They drove straight into the heart of the enemy fleet, like wolves attacking a herd. The Tolan cruisers followed, their weapons blazing. They fought with a fury that shocked the Velen commanders. These were supposed to be slaves. These were supposed to be broken. The Morith ships hung back, but their role was just as important. They targeted specific systems on the Velen vessel's shield generators, engine cores, communication arrays. They knew exactly where to strike because they had built these ships with their own hands. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded. Debris filled the space between the fleets. Thousands died on both sides. But slowly, impossibly, the coalition was winning. The Velen had never learned to adapt. For 12,000 years, they had used the same tactics because their tactics always worked. They did not know how to change. They did not know how to respond when their enemies did something unexpected. The humans changed tactics every few minutes. They retreated, then attacked from new angles. They set traps. They used their smallest ships as bait, while their largest ships struck from behind. They fought dirty and smart and without any sense of honor, and their allies followed their lead. 4 hours into the battle, the Velen fleet began to break. Ships started retreating. Others surrendered. The perfect formation that had protected Vela Prime for millennia fell apart like a house made of cards. "General," Hannah said, her voice shaking, "the High Council is hailing us again." Ayuna looked at the screen. The Velen leader's face appeared once more. He looked older now, smaller. "Enough," he said. His voice was no longer cold and smooth. It was tired. "We accept your terms. All of them. Just ... stop." Yuna watched him for a long moment. She thought of soul burning. She thought of the millions who had died. She thought of every species that had suffered under Velen rule for thousands of years. She could destroy them completely. She had the power now. She could burn Vela Prime the way they had burned Earth. But that was not why she had fought. "Order your fleet to stand down," she said. Immediately, he did. The war was over. The aftermath was long and difficult. There were treaties to sign and prisoners to free, and 1,000 worlds that needed help rebuilding. General Yuna worked for years, traveling from system to system, helping species find their way back to freedom. She never went home. Earth was rebuilding too, but she felt like she belonged out here now among the stars. Among the beings she had fought beside and bled beside one day. Many years later, a reporter asked her what she wanted humanity to be remembered for. She was old by then, gray-haired and tired, and walking with a cane, but her eyes were still sharp, and her voice was still strong. "We were not the strongest species in the galaxy," she said. "We were not the oldest or the wisest, but when they came for us, we did not kneel. And when we rose, we did not rise alone. We reached out our hands and lifted everyone else with us." She looked up at the sky. The stars were bright. Somewhere out there, ships were flying, and worlds were healing, and beings who had once been slaves were learning what freedom felt like. "That is what I want us to be remembered for," she said softly. "Not that we won, but that we won together." The reporter nodded. The interview ended. General Una Park, the woman who had spoken to the stars and changed the galaxy, went back to her work. There was always more work to do, but that was okay. She was not alone anymore. None of them were.